What's good, YouTube? We're talking college sports in the Deep South where college football is king and on the plains of Auburn. The battle cry is War Eagle. Once again, it's Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn, where we're talking a little SEC/ACC football today here on the Sports Talk. And obviously, in week 0, a couple of days from now, Miami out of the ACC will be taking on Florida of the SEC. This happens to be an old rival between the two teams, especially back in the days when Miami was an independent. That series died out. These guys meet on occasion in these neutral site locations. When we look at the Miami Hurricanes, lost to LSU at the beginning of the season last year. Now, Miami finds themselves in 2019 on the opposite end of that particular spectrum. Last year, they were overwhelming favorites over LSU. But when you talk about LSU, you just can't, I thought those analyses were dangerous because you can't really discount LSU because they recruit so well. Now, Miami lost that particular game 33-17, very surprisingly. They came into that game ranked in the top 10, lost that game to LSU, and then went on a promising 5-game winning streak, although that included teams like Florida A&M, teams of that nature, but got 2 huge conference wins to end that win streak over North Carolina and Florida State. When we review and survey the outcome of last season for the Miami Hurricanes, we can't discount the damaging 4-game losing streak in the SEC and the ACC. And the biggest problem with this is the fact that the margin of error was an average of a touchdown. They lost by an average of 7 points during that little stretch. And one thing to note is that they just really couldn't get the quarterback position solid as they, kind of jumped back and forth between Mark Rozier and N'Kosi Perry. They split games and then they combined for only 2,000 yards. One thing about it, though, even though they surrendered that stretch that included losses, to Duke and Georgia Tech, they were able to salvage the season by beating Virginia Tech and Pitt to end the season. They actually won those games by double digits. Out goes Mark Richt and in comes Manny Diaz. When we look at Miami for this particular year, they're coming off a 28th ranked recruiting class. And although they have some questions offensively, one place where this team can potentially rest their laurels is on the defense. They return a pretty solid linebacker core, Shaquille Quarterman, Zach McLeod, and Michael Pickens. But they will miss the production for sure of quarterback Juwan Johnson. Some of the offseason stuff that's been going on with Miami, you got quarterback transfer Tate Martell, which a lot of the Miami fan base was just absolutely, ecstatic about his arrival, but it just didn't pan out. As a matter of fact, Jaron Williams, redshirt freshman who almost chose Kentucky, may be a little bit more mobile this year because he has lost a little weight. It appears that N'Kosi Perry, which got some snaps from last year, will be the second string quarterback. We look at this game against Florida as Miami has the unique task of taking on a Florida team that a lot of folks are big on. I'm not sure if it's premature, and we will find out like we did find out last year as, Miami took on LSU. But Florida has a lot of things to, look forward to coming into this season. You talk about second-year head coach Dan Mullen, able to retain defensive coordinator Todd Grantham, which was absolutely huge. Have a lot of talent on the receiver part of the football field. You talk about Vaughn Jefferson, Kadarius Toney, and Trevon Grimes. And also the return of LaMichael Pirine. The only question mark so far for the Florida Gators on the offensive side is how quickly can some of those inexperienced offensive linemen translate their play to high-level Power 5 football. And you'll find out this Saturday if they can do the deal. Florida's biggest level of hype comes from the latter end of the season where they blew Florida out and then beat Michigan in the Peach Bowl. Not sure how much stock to put in the Peach Bowl. Michigan was actually missing three key difference makers: Devin Bush, Big Ten Player of the Year; Kevon Higdon, team's leading rusher; and right tackle Juwan Beatty. All those three guys were out, and it was so much so of importance that the Vegas betting lines changed after knowing these three key guys weren't going to be there. Turned out to be so. The defense for Florida seems to be pretty solid, returning 7 starters, including very talented cornerbacks C.J. Henderson, who may make a push for one of the best cornerbacks in the country this year, and Marco Wilson, Devin Reese at linebacker, and Zabari Zunigan and Jonathan Grenard, who are both very, very solid edge players. How do we think this particular game is going to turn out? Well, you talk about an in-state rivalry. Even though these guys don't meet a lot, you're going to get optimal play from both teams. I go with a lot of, these first games, you never really can thoroughly analyze where these teams are just based on, what we have to look at. Outside of these teams hitting the field, I really think Florida has the edge over this, over Miami. Definitely more solid at the coaching staff at this point, 2 years in for Dan Mullen and retaining Todd Grantham. Solid at the running back position. So I'd give Florida the edge right now. 28-17 should be the score of this particular game. I think it's competitive, at least for a half. I think, Florida starts to pull away midway through the third quarter and beyond. So look for a very, very entertaining football game. Like I said, two rivals going to be playing each other at a very, very high level. And this is Vernon Speaks Sports, Auburn's take on the Florida and Miami game, week 0. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast, Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. Go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and comment whatever you think your prediction will be, like we did in the previous video. And as always, on this particular channel, we mostly talk about Auburn, but we have a little SEC action going on this weekend. You all take care.